Hi there and welcome to the Daily Arsenal News Show. Let's dive into today's top stories. Mikel Arteta was absolutely furious with a 24-year-old Arsenal player in the first half last night. Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta was reportedly furious with Martin Odegaard after he lost the ball in a dangerous position in the first half last night. The Gunners suffered a 2-1 defeat to Lens in the Champions League yesterday. The performances of many of their players were extremely disappointing, including Arsenal skipper Odegaard, who really struggled. Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta named a very strong lineup last night. Almost all of his key players got the nod, including skipper Martin Odegaard, who played in his usual right-sided attacking midfield role. The 24-year-old Norwegian has been one of the best players in Europe in that position since the start of last season. He has been magnificent for Arsenal, but he had an evening to forget yesterday. Odegaard looked nothing like his usual self. He wasn't comfortable on the ball, lost it on a few occasions, and just couldn't boss the game like he usually does. In the first half, just before Arsenal scored, Odegaard failed with a backheel attempt. Many of his teammates were committed to the attack and Lance charged forward on the counter. Arteta was absolutely furious with his captain on the touchline. Reports Football London. The Arsenal boss apparently grabbed the attention of Odegaard after Gabriel Jesus' goal and gestured to be smart with his actions on the pitch. Things don't get any easier for Arsenal after their defeat in France last night. Manchester City are coming to town on Sunday. The Gunners have a shocking record against the champions. They have won just 3 of their last 21 meetings and haven't beaten them in the Premier League since December 2015, when Arsene Wenger was still the manager of the club. If Arsenal are serious about their title ambitions, they need to make a statement against the best team in the country, and Arteta would love nothing more than a win over his mentor this weekend. Odegaard will have to be at his absolute best if his side are to get anything from the game. If he plays as he did yesterday, the Gunners don't stand a chance. Martin Keown says he is starting to get very worried about Arsenal's wonderful player now. Martin Keown has admitted that he is starting to get worried about Bukayo Saka's fitness situation at Arsenal. Keon was on TNT Sports covering Arsenal's 2-1 Champions League defeat to Lens last night. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta selected arguably his strongest side, which is unsurprising given the magnitude of the fixture. The Gunners haven't been in the Champions League for years and will want to take it as seriously as possible. However, they still fell to a 2-1 defeat and might not have left themselves in the best place to face Manchester City on Sunday. Martin Keown has admitted he is beginning to worry about Arsenal star Bukayo Saka and the amount of football he is having to play. He limped off in the first half last night after struggling through Saturday's match against Bournemouth. There has been a suggestion that Arteta doesn't fully trust the alternatives in the squad right now. He may have no choice but to call upon one of them for Sunday's huge encounter with Pep Guardiola's side. Speaking about the England international, Keon said, "Wonderful talent, there is no doubt about that. He draws players in, doesn't he, for contact injuries. I wonder for this one worryingly, is it his hamstring? Man City coming up at the weekend, so they have got him out of there as quickly as possible. Fingers crossed, but it's the workload, the number of games. We had a World Cup that we were preparing for this time last year, and it's been successive games and seasons year on year, and he is such a young man, so they had to protect him, and that's a big loss if he is going to be unavailable at the weekend." Many Arsenal fans will agree with Keon that Saka's game time needs to be more carefully managed now. Pundit says £27 million Arsenal player really didn't look up for it last night. Arsenal lost their first game of the season on a Tuesday evening against Lens and in all honesty, they were worthy losers. Lens outplayed, outworked, and outfought Arsenal all over the park on a Tuesday evening, and there are a few players who need to take a long look in the mirror after last night. One player who didn't have the best of times against Lens was Leandro Trossard. The £27 million winger wasn't at the races in the Champions League on a Tuesday, and speaking on the breakdown live, Adrian Clark noted that Trossard wasn't at his best. The Pundit stated that it really wasn't Trossard's night, claiming that Arsenal looked incredibly flat out wide throughout the game. He said, "Not a lot happened there, and down the left it really wasn't Trossard's night. He cut in and had a chance that was saved, but that was the only real contribution we made. Out wide, we were just flat." We don't want to pile into Trossard too much after the Lens game, because he certainly wasn't the only Arsenal player who wasn't up to the task on a Tuesday. Indeed, basically, the entire team wasn't up to scratch against Lens, and this is a wake-up call that there are no easy games in the Champions League. Perhaps Arsenal looked at the League One table and thought this would be a straightforward win, but in the Champions League, there is no such thing as an easy game, and Trossard and co need to be up for every single match if the Gunners are going to go far in this competition. Pundit says £65 million Arsenal player could now do what William Saliba did last season. Kai Havertz scored his first Arsenal goal at the weekend, and his performance against Bournemouth could well be the springboard that launches his Arsenal career. Not only did the German find the net for the first time, he was also embraced by his teammates and, more importantly, the fans. Indeed, the Arsenal fans on the day debuted a new chant for Kai Havertz, and speaking on the breakdown live, Adrian Clark has been discussing Havertz's new chant, claiming that, much like William Saliba's chant last season, this could connect Havertz to the fan base and help him grow and reach the next level. Clark shared his verdict on the £65 million Arsenal midfielder. He said, "I just feel it was a big fee, a new club, a new manager, and he was asked to play in a new position. He come from Chelsea, there is extra pressure because of that, but scoring a goal can free you up, and you know what else can free you up? Knowing your teammates love you and the fans love you." The fans were singing for 20 minutes non-stop. It was like the Saliba chant all over again. We saw what that did for Saliba. Let's hope that's the springboard for Kai to go out and express himself in the way we know he can. Let's hope that Havertz can go through a Saliba-esque improvement in the coming weeks, because he needs it. But simply, the former Chelsea man hasn't been good enough since arriving at the Emirates, and while he did get his goal at the weekend, it was a penalty that most players would fancy themselves to score. Havertz hasn't been at it so far for Arsenal, but perhaps this lift and swell of support from the fans will give him the platform needed to reach that next level and prove his ability and worth. Gabby Agbonlahor now doesn't think Mikel Arteta trusts 23-year-old Arsenal man. Pundit Gabby Agbonlahor has suggested that Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta might not trust Emile Smith-Rowe after barely using him this season. Agbonlahor was speaking on talkSPORT after Arsenal's disappointing 2-1 defeat to Lens. Gabby Agbonlahor has now said that the fact Mikel Arteta didn't feel like he could use Emile Smith-Rowe instead of resting Saka is a worrying sign. There have been question marks over Smith-Rowe's future at the Emirates after he failed to start a single league game last season. He was linked with a move away in the summer, and those rumors haven't gone away. It might be time for the England international to demand more minutes or consider his future in North London. Reflecting on yesterday's defeat and the impact of Saka's injury, Agbonlahor said, "For one, he should have rested him against Bournemouth, and two, he didn't even bring him off as the first sub when they were up 3-0. He didn't even bring him off first. It's like Now your games, Bournemouth, you are telling me Smith Rowe, Nelson, these squad players aren't good enough to come in and get the result. You have got the Champions League, you have got the biggest game of the season against Manchester City, where you are going to need your strongest side, your best chance to beat Man City with the injuries they have got and the players not available. Agbonlahor is right that Arteta needs to seriously start thinking about playing Smith Rowe more often. Although he might not be seen as a natural Saka replacement on the right, it's a role he played with some success for England's under 21s in the summer. Reece Nelson is in a similar position, and Arteta's lack of willingness to rotate may have left some important options lacking the required match sharpness to be thrown into games like the one last night. All eyes will be on his team selection at the weekend if Saka's long run of consecutive league matches comes to an end. ESPN Pundit thinks Mikel Arteta may soon be starting tremendous £30 million Arsenal player. Craig Burley believes that there is a chance that Aaron Ramsdale would have actually saved the first Lance goal scored against Arsenal last night and thinks another chance for the goalkeeper may not be too far away. Burley was speaking to ESPN after David Raya cheaply gave away possession before Lens equalized on Tuesday's Champions League tie. Aaron Ramsdale has now sat out 5 of Arsenal's last 6 games in all competitions, and with David Raya starting both of their Champions League games, as well as the North London Derby, it certainly appears that the Spaniard is now the number one. Ramsdale seemed to do little wrong before he lost his place, so he may have a couple of questions for Mikel Arteta, with Raya yet to look particularly convincing, and it was Raya's error which allowed the home side to equalize yesterday. He played a long ball out to the right flank from just outside his area. However, the pass was cut out, and within a couple of touches, it was in the back of his net. It was an outstanding finish, but Burley has suggested that it may not have found the back of the net had Ramsdale been the man between the sticks for the strike. He said, when David Raya is perceived to be better with his feet than Ramsdale, who I don't think is terrible with his feet, but looking at that goal there, that was a great goal from Lance's perspective, but Raya doesn't have the stature of Ramsdale. Ramsdale's much bigger, taller, more wingspan. There is an argument to say he might have saved something like that. I saw him make some absolutely tremendous saves last year. Ramsdale, tip of the finger stuff. Whilst they did not lose to Lance because of David Raya alone, I go back to this point. This was a very big and harsh decision on somebody who was terrific for the most part for Arsenal last year, so watch this space. The problem Arteta has now created for himself is that Ramsdale must feel that he should be getting his chance. He made no obvious mistakes at the beginning of this campaign, so there is an argument that he has actually been the better of the two goalkeepers so far. However, next up for Arsenal is Manchester City, and making a goalkeeper change ahead of that game is hardly the best preparation. Certainly, if Ramsdale comes in and makes an error, questions will be asked of Arteta's strategy. Arsenal have set their sights on fearless right-back. He is a much better dribbler than Ben White. Arsenal have been scouting young Italian fullback Mikel Arteta ahead of the January transfer window. A report from Italian outlet Firenze Viola has shared more details about the 19-year-old defender's future. Mikel Arteta and Edu Gaspar appear to always have one eye on the future when it comes to their transfer policy. Arsenal's squad is one of the youngest in the Premier League, with each of their outfield signings this summer being under the age of 24. The Gunners brought in Jurriën Timber from Ajax to play across the backline. Although a serious injury has scuppered his first season at the club, Arsenal are still looking at other right-backs though and are currently scouting Mikel Arteta. The Fiorentina defender has had a sensational few months, breaking into the Fiorentina first team and winning the Under-19 Euros this summer. He has also been named one of the best youth prospects in the world right now, and the Gunners would have liked what they have seen from the 19-year-old so far this season. The report from Firenze Viola suggests Arsenal have already set their sights on Kayode and admired his performance at the weekend. Fiorentina are expected to tie him down to a new contract that will significantly increase his salary. Fiorentina manager is a big fan of Kayode and said this season, Kayode has a strong character. He fears nothing and it's important when you are this young. Moreover, he is physically strong and motivated after winning the Euros. When he returned to Florence, he kept the gold medal around his neck for a few days. The stats also back up why Arsenal might be scouting Coyote right now. The 19-year-old has played 4 fewer matches than Ben White this season and only started twice in Serie A. However, he has already completed 6 of his 8 dribbles running down the right. For context, White has managed to complete just a single dribble out of his 5 attempts. It's hard to criticize White too harshly for this, as he's been brilliant this season, especially starting the campaign at centre back. As we wrap up today's Arsenal news, remember to stay tuned for daily updates right here on the channel. Don't miss out on the latest updates, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a like if you found this information valuable. Your support means the world to us. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.